I was a little worried about something going into our most recent show, and sure enough, it looks like a little anxiety has spread through our clan over the start format and course changes announced by the Leadville Race Series. We're going to get into those changes in this episode and why we think you'll be just fine. But if we've created any unnecessary stress in your lives, well, we apologize.
Although it is in our tagline to freak you out. So, caveat emptor, folks. That said, we hope you will heed the old adage, control the controllables. And course changes are not in your control. What is in your control is staying relaxed, or at least trying to, about the unknowns that we're going to be facing. And for that, we say, let Floyd's of Leadville help you out. Floyd's has a wide range of CBD products that not only assist you with physical recovery, but can also help you put that overactive, stressed out mind at ease.
In preparation for this show, Fatty and I had a long talk about how stresses, whether they be from training or work or a last-minute change to a race course, all carry the same weight. Our job is to recover from them and get on with the job at hand. Again, that's where Floyd's comes in.
It sure is. Read up on the course changes. Listen to this episode 5 times if you have to. Get ready for the wave changes, the course changes. And once you've done all of that, try not to dwell on it. And if you are stressed, try a Floyd's capsule, tincture, or chew, balm, and that can definitely help you turn the volume down on that mental noise just a notch or two.
Check out all of the relaxing products at floydsofleadville.com and use the code FATTY at checkout for a 15% discount.
And thanks, Floyd's of Leadville, for sponsoring the show.
3, 2, 1.
Leadville, the podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race presented by Floyd's of Leadville. It is season 4, episode 16 of the show that breaks down, builds up, gets you ready, and freaks you out for the highest and hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country. I'm Michael Hottie to most.
And I am Fatty to everyone. A lot of feedback has come in on our last show, the one where we had a great conversation with race director Mike Melley, and talking about the new start format and the course changes for this year's Leadville Trail 100 mountain bike race. The changes are not monumental in the big picture, but they are definitely worth talking about. And that's what we're going to do in this episode. We hope you'll listen to the Melley interview. If you have not, go back and listen to it first. That said, it's worth hearing a quick recap on the things that we talked about in that episode. Hottie, why don't you do that?
I think there's probably 7 big things here. First of all, we're going to have wave starts, 7 waves starting at 6:30 in the morning, going to about 6:49 in the morning. Sounds like the ropes will not drop. So let's just keep your corrals in position and keep folks in their assigned waves as they send them off. Outbound, approaching the bottom of Columbine. The course makes a new turn out here. It's going to turn east and then north to avoid the private property. The Columbine climb is shorter. I don't hear many complaints about this, which is great. You're not going to go down to the cabin. Instead, you're just going to turn around basically at the top of Columbine, flip down and come back down. And of course, on the return, you're going to do this new kind of avoid the private property section as well. The single track will be bypassed this year on the return. Okay, you get to do it outbound. Everyone does, in fact. Remember, they used to divert some people at the back of the pack from doing it outbound. Now everyone gets to do it outbound, and on the return, no one gets to do it. They're going to divert people onto the 136, and we miss, going back in at least, Little Stinker, also known as Clavicle Hill. And again, I think there's plenty of rejoicing about that. As of this recording, the race series is still working out exactly where the Twin Lakes alternate feed will be. We'll get back to you on that. Crew parking and passes. There's never a big change for the race. It's going to be 1 parking pass per racer and 2 crew credentials per racer. Remember, previously, you could take your parking pass and pile in as many people as you could in your car, and everyone could go out to the crew spots. Now they're trying to limit folks to 2 crew members per racer. And we do have an update on what they mean by crew member. There's going to be an age, I guess, an age difference now on who qualifies as a crew member. Masks, masks are not being mandated by the race or Lake County. That could change. Again, this recording is 3 weeks a little more than that out from the start of the race. We all know about the Delta variant going around. So no mask mandate. And they're asking, of course, people to use common sense and space enough around the race start and at the feed zones. This podcast is going to tell you, just be safe, try to do the right thing, try to use those healthy practices that you've had in place since this time last year or before. So that's a rundown of what we heard. Of course, we have a few thoughts on most of this, and there's some additional info that has come out since the interview with Mike Melley. We're going to get to all of that in just a second.
Yeah, a few thoughts in sarcasm quotes. We are going to spend an hour talking about all of this. So one of the harder things to do during the Leadville Trail 100 or any off-road race is reaching into the back of your jersey pocket and pulling out the item that you actually want. Your brain's going, I could use a goo Roctane with caffeine. And your hand goes into the pocket, you rummage around, you pull out something to find out this is not what your brain ordered. And it is in the wrong direction. And so you go fishing again. And all while you are bouncing down a rocky, rutted dirt road.
Which is why I really love my DNA cycling bibs. They are called the gravel bibs for short. I know it's kind of a trendy name. Call them what you want. We call them a problem solver. On the sides of each leg of the DNA gravel bibs are stretchy mesh pockets, perfect for stashing those emergency go-to gels.
Yeah, you don't want to stuff all of your food in those pockets because that would feel and look pretty awkward. But racers know there's going to be a moment or two during long events like the Leadville 100 when you are wanting something real specific. And that is what should go in the side pockets of the DNA gravel bib. That's where I used to actually stuff those under the elastic of my bib shorts. I lost so many gels that way, Hottie. With the stretchy side pockets on my shorts, never lose anything.
Yeah, with those gels in those side pockets, there's no mistaking what's coming out because you can actually see what's in them. And frankly, reaching into a pocket on the side of your leg is just much easier than reaching around your back. That is, as long as you're not pedaling. Because when you're pedaling and you're reaching in those mesh pockets, yeah, it can be a little awkward. But just stop the rotation on those pedals real quick. Stuff your hand in there, grab that gel. A bonus on the gravel bib is that it also has two pockets on the back panel, right at the base of the straps, where you can stash some type of emergency item. Maybe it's a Dynaplug, a little tubeless tire plug tool. These pockets are harder to reach, but whatever you put them in there, that is, will free up space for items in your jersey pockets.
Yeah, and anything you put in there, you are not going to lose. Honestly, that's where I put my phone, Hottie. I have more than once had a phone bounce out of my jersey pocket when I have taken a fall. It's nice to not lose that when you're to lose your phone. Anyway, if you're looking for a little additional storage out of your kit, check out the DNA gravel bib. Just go to dnacycling.com.
We are going back to our season one format here, Fatty, with a look at we're also going back to some season one music too, with that little theme bump there. Something we called the course in season one. Back then, we broke down segment by segment, out and back, every mile of the Leadville 100. It remains one of our most popular segments that we've ever done on this show, so we are bringing it back for a look at the 2021 course changes.
I missed that theme. It is nice to have it back. Let's go ahead and start with the start. Specifically, we're going to talk about wave starts. Hottie, there are a lot of pros that I see. There are also some people who are seeing some cons with the wave starts. I know that and let's start with the cons. I know there are a lot of people in the white corral who are fast guys, but who have not done a qualifier, haven't done the race before. They are a little bit concerned that all of the fast people, the people in gold and silver and red corrals, are all going to be 15 minutes literally up the field before they cross the starting line. You see that do you see that as a valid concern for them?
Only if they're looking to draft off a fast person.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. Otherwise, you're on chip time. So it's just your chip time you're worried about. Yeah, I get it, though. I mean, I understand where somebody in one of the corrals in the back, maybe have it in their mind, I'm going to move up, jump on a fast wheel, and take a launcher, all the way up Kevens. So yeah, you lose that ability, but otherwise you're just on the chip. So you're going to get your time is your time.
Yeah, chip time is what matters most. There are, of course, issues where if you are the people you have available to work with, at least at the beginning of the race, coming down from the bottom of power line till, pipeline and beyond, especially now with the additional road section between Twin Lakes Dam and the Columbine Climb, the people that you work with are the people who are in your group. Of course, things will spread out a little bit, but I will say to the folks in the white corral, you are not the only super fast person who is looking for someone to work with. The white corral is big, and there are going to be a lot of other racers who are your speed, who you will be able to work with. You are not going to be hung out to dry all alone on the parts of the course where you want to draft and work together as a peloton.
Just look for Ty Hall. Tall guy, probably has a Tennessee Pass cycling jersey on. That guy wants to move up. And every year he makes a game and a fundraiser out of passing people. And he does it from the back of the race. So jump on his wheel if you think you can hang on and go for it. You'll move up quickly.
Hang with Ty and you will have a fast finish time. I guarantee it. So next con that I am hearing is tradition. There is a tradition for 28 years now, I guess, of the race, of a mass start that we have always started together, and we will not be doing that this year. My sense on that one is this race has always been about change. And at some point, we should talk about all of the changes that have happened in the race. It's always been a mass start, but I would have argued, for the last 6-10 years, it should not have been a mass start. Wave starts are a thing, and they are safer. And for the size of the course, that is the bandwidth of the course, everyone racing together is unfair to the people who are not at the start of the line, are not at the bleeding edge of the line.
I love mass starts. I loved this mass start. I like getting together with all those people and rolling away at once. Always have loved that. Again, I am a rider who does not mind moving up and working through traffic a little bit, but I get it. I understand what's at stake here. There's safety at stake. There's people who get deeply frustrated by the amount of traffic they run into on Kevens and Columbine. So I get it. And I'm also willing to say this, Fatty, let's try it. Just like Mike said, let's try this and see if we like it. Maybe we don't. Maybe everyone goes, let's go back to the way it was. It was fine. But let's definitely, it's worth trying. We don't know if this works until we try it.
Yeah. And I will say, I've only raced with you one time, Hottie, which seems unfortunate, but at the beginning of the Crusher and the Tusher, I was able to witness firsthand how you move through the field. And it was a pleasure to watch. And I tucked in on your wheel. And for the first 5 miles of the race, it was like I was being given a ride. So yeah, you truly are skilled at working in big crowds. I am really bad at it. And I think that there is a fair number of the race group who are strong riders, but mountain bike mostly by themselves. They don't have a lot of criterium experience. They don't have a lot of mass start experience. And we feel really uncomfortable during this. And this is a mountain bike race. It is not a mountain bike race for people who are used to doing crits. So I think for most of the racers that this is going to be something that feels better. Anyway, the final real con I think that I'm hearing is that because of this wave start, that there is a necessity of the single track elimination, right? That because we are spreading over 19 minutes, the start, that we have to move the inbound single track out. For those of us who actually really liked the inbound single track, I think this is the most legitimate con of the thing, because I'm going to miss having the single track on the inbound.
I always loved how, as much as possible, Leadville made this a pure out and back course, and this move, eliminating the single track, does take away some of that purity. That said, there are a fair number of people in white who never saw the single track. at least not outbound.
Right.
And if they were able to not make the cutoff, then they saw it inbound maybe. But so there was always kind of this diversion going on. I think the thing that we should also address here is talking about elimination is the elimination of Little Stinker inbound, which got its name for a reason. I mean, that thing was really painful and could be a factor in the race. So, yeah, we are having to make a compromise here to accommodate wave start. And this is it. I mean, no single track inbound, no tradition, and no Little Stinker inbound. And again, it's worth trying. Let's try it and see if we like it.
Yeah. And that does bring us to the pros. Congestion relief is the most important of the pros of the wave start. And I would say that starts on the outbound pavement. Now, as we mentioned, you're really fine with that pavement section. I have been taken down, and the only time I have been crashed by another racer in the Leadville 100 is 100 feet from the starting line by someone who felt like they needed to push to the Silver Corral as quickly as they could. That was not a great moment for me. So not having that pavement congestion, I'm super looking forward to. Second one, and this is very important, is the Keevins climb. I think it is probably the single most important pro to the wave starts. I'm actually looking at my Strava for 2019, and I looked at how far I had gone 19 minutes into the race, which is the difference between the first and the last racer crossing the starting line. Guess where I was, Hottie? 19 minutes into the race after I crossed the starting line.
Somewhere on Keevins, I would think.
I was actually right at the base where you take that left turn and you start climbing Keevins. That's 19 minutes. So and because it's going to be the gold and silver corral 19 minutes after the gun goes off, they will be, midway up St. Keevins when the white corral starts. So the field is really going to be stretched out in a way that it has never been before. What I am really hoping for is that is going to translate into significantly improved ease of riding up St. Keevins, which is to say fewer matches burned when you need to, because you won't have to work your way around people. You're going to be way less likely to have to put a foot down when someone makes a mistake and puts a foot down in front of you. And, for people like me who do make mistakes, it is going to be nice to have a reduced possibility of the mortification of causing a domino effect behind me. I am looking forward to not ruining, but to not slowing down anyone else. And I mean, you really can't overestimate the value of burning fewer matches on that first climb when you really shouldn't have to just kind of go with the flow.
Yeah, the Mike Melley told us that many of the changes they did were out of safety concern. I don't think this is one area they were concerned about safety. I think they just heard it plenty from riders who said, look, we're tired of the traffic jam on Keevins. So early in the race, our races are getting put on the back foot because there's so much traffic on Keevins. And if you probably look back at the early days of this race, they didn't have this issue, right? When there were 300-400 riders riding up, it was probably, if they did, it was much less of an issue. But with 1,500 riders roaring down 6 headed for Keevins, yeah, you're going to run into some issues. In my attempts going up Keevins, the 5 times I've gone up it in race day, I don't believe I've ever had to dab there. I've always either gotten around somebody or found the right wheel to stay on. You're just forced to ride at other people's pace. And that can be frustrating. So I get it. Again, this is another reason why it's worth trying. Let's see how it plays out on Keevins. If we all like having more space and having a free run at Keevins.
And you can tell that, and it's no secret that I have advocated for years on this podcast for wave starts. And so I'm definitely probably overrepresenting the pros here. But past Keevins, I think that you're going to see benefits on the power line descent. It doesn't affect me much because I am not a super fast descender, but there are very good descenders who get held up by the likes of me every year. Because the race will be stretched out a bit, the speedy descenders on Powerline are going to have an easier time, less congestion, I think, as they're bombing Powerline. Will it be smart to bomb Powerline this year? That is a different question, and I think something that we should get to because of all that rain and the new, fresh, very sharp ruts that we are hearing about.
Yeah, we want to, this is not part of the Leadville Race Series course changes, but a Mother Nature change to the course, as they've had they've had a wetter than normal spring and summer in Leadville. Some pretty good downpours there, and that has led to some changes in the course. As you know, rain has to go somewhere, and it usually goes downhill and carves out nice ruts and turns over new rocks, no pun intended. So we've heard some reports. They've been trickling in about some serious changes up on Powerline. The lower section that was graded, that everyone knows, that famous section, that appears to be okay, like we've known it for the last couple of years. Although, again, weather can change things dramatically up there with the exposed dirt that they have. The really tough sections are up top in that tree area where we're seeing debris flow, lots of new rocks, big boulders, just a much rougher terrain than we're used to up there. And it's already rough, right, Fatty? I mean, that's just a tough section to ride, especially in the morning, outbound with the sun in your eye and dust in the air. You really got to be careful. Some of the stuff I read online so far, some people who've pre-ridden that portion of the course, worst shape I've seen it, barely rideable in places, looks like the hillside washed down across what trail bed was there. Then the water washed the dirt from between the rocks and made just kind of a nasty mess. There's also been some video from Sugarloaf 2 and some indications maybe that Sugarloaf 2, the Sugarloaf climb and descent, obviously when you're going inbound, has also been cut up a little bit, although the video to me looked fairly normal as Sugarloaf goes. But so folks, again, pre-riding the course is always something we've talked about on this, and those are spots that Fatty and I have dispatched you to. Go have a look at Keevans, go have a look at Sugarloaf the week of the race if you have time, and certainly that Powerline descent. You want to have a look, see where your lines are, see where you'd like to be, see what the conditions of the course are, and just do all of that knowing that, hell, even the day, if you go out and race it on Wednesday, it could rain and change things again. So you really have to keep an open mind and open eyes about this section of the course.
Yeah. That said, don't get freaked out about it, because with 2,000 people going out and racing that day, a line evolves even over the course of the first couple hundred of riders. And unless you are in gold, silver, or red corral, there is going to be a pronounced line that you can follow during this, during the tricky sections that you're not going to have to worry about. So that is, and of course, that line sort of evolves in the days leading up to the race as a lot of people pre-ride. Look at that line, follow it. It's there for a good reason. Smart people have made that choice before. The last place that you are going to see, I think, a reduction in congestion because of the wave start is on the Columbine Goat Trail going up. I think that after that everything will have diffused out enough that it's going to be more or less normal feeling in the number of people that you see at a given point in time. But if you are one of those people who are super strong or are very good at low speed, high altitude climbing, you may have a better chance at getting to the summit while still on your bike. Marching up the trail is usually, for anyone who is not right at the beginning, a near certainty. But there will be enough of a break between waves, I think, at this point in the trail, that if you are one of those people who is really a strong climber and getting up Columbine is one of your main goals, and it is for some people. I know them. I mean, Roxanne, she does it. You may have a better chance at doing this. I don't really know for sure if by the time you get 50 miles into this course, if that will still be true. But I kind of think it's going to at least help a little bit. Okay, Hottie, let's go past the pros and cons and just a few observations on the wave starts. I think we're going to see some corral personalities emerge off the starting line, just because of how people qualify into the corrals. And you normally don't see these so much because of the mass start, everyone just kind of, goes together. But I think you're going to see a real confidence with gold and silver. These are the experts. These are the super fast people. Red, like gold and silver, very confident group. These are people who have a almost near certainty of finishing under 9 hours. It's the green group, the group that I'm in, that I think is probably, you're going to see an aggressive personality emerge. This is a group where a sub-9 is not a certainty, but it's something that they really want. This group, I think, is really going to take off hard together, working to see if they can connect to red. So if you are in the green group, like I am, kind of be ready for that. I know for sure that I want to have a pretty clear view of Kevins. So I'm going to be making probably more of an effort to be near the front of the group when I do, by the time I get to the climb at Kevins, because that open space on Kevins is something worth putting a little bit of effort into. Purple, I think this is going to be the most aggressive group of all, the most aggressive corral. These are the people who have something to prove. These are the people who either barely got a sub-9 before, or did not get a sub-9 before, or qualified but didn't maybe get the qualification they were hoping for green. I think this is the group that is going to really be going hard. Be careful if you are with this group. Aggression can be a dangerous thing, and Roman candles burn hot and then they burn out. You don't want to ruin the second half of your race so that you can get a personal record going up Kevins and Sugarloaf.
I just wonder if anybody's going to try to bridge across Tour de France style. Like, would somebody be brave enough to try to bridge to another corral, another wave? That would be, there's a possibility you could catch on to somebody kind of falling off the back of a wave and then leap your fog. But you're going to be burning a lot of matches to do that. More than likely, folks are going to stay with their people and try and find somebody within their corral to make their way, out down to Kevins and out on course that way. So leaping across, that sounds risky. That sounds like a lot of matches to me.
Yeah, there's definitely a cost for making that change. The last group, the personality that I want to mention here is the white group. I hope that there is some self-seeding in here, because this group is, people who are doing the race for the first time. This is sort of a non-qualified group, some very fast, some very, some looking for a 12-hour, a 13-hour finish. Put yourself where you belong when you start with that wave. So, if you put yourself at the front of this, think of yourself as surrounded by racers who are looking for an 8:15, 8:30 time. People who seriously want to, prove something big in this. If you were looking for a 12-hour finish, put yourself maybe in the back third of it so that you don't get run over by the people who, have ambitions for an incredibly fast finish. So that white group, it's a big one. A little bit of self-seeding can make things safer and better for everyone. Now let's move away from the wave starts and start talking about some of the course changes. And of course, the first course change that everyone is going to experience is what we're going to call the private property workaround. That is, we used to go through a very short section of private property, 3/4 of a mile, and now we are working our way around that section. So point to point from where we divert from the original or the most recent point on the course to where we rejoin that. Used to be 3/4 of a mile. Now it is going to be 2.5 miles. That is a 1 3/4 mile increase in distance that you were going to be riding during the race. Multiply that times 2. That is 3.5 new miles that you were going to be riding here. Now, doing the math, looking at people who have, who've gone comparably, at race pace between, both ways, we're looking at basically a 3% addition in how much time you're going to be spending on the course by doing this. So we'll be talking about percentages throughout this, but big thanks to Ray Landry, one of the guys who was a coach during the during the Camp of Champions who did both of these and did some analysis on it. Very useful stuff here. There's no two ways around this. This race is going to be longer and slower because of this section. Now, there are going to be things that make up for it. We'll talk about those later. But yeah, just because it will take more time, that does not mean that you can't use it to your benefit, right? It's going to be longer, it's going to be slower, but it is going to be very not technical. It is a dirt road. And it is, which means this is an opportunity. You have an opportunity here to eat, you have an opportunity to drink, and you have an opportunity to maybe do a little bit of recovery, your last moment for recovery to get ready for Columbine, the Columbine climb. Remember, if you've ever listened to our core segments before, we have talked about this. The first half mile of Columbine is brutal. It is steep. And so if you hit the base of Columbine kind of shelled already, you're going to suffer for the whole thing. You arrive there a little bit rested, like this new section gives you an opportunity to do. You have a better chance of having a really good climb. Use it that way. Inbound, I would say, this is also, on the way back down, when you hit this long segment again, it's a great opportunity to regroup, which means look over your shoulder and see who else is close to you. If you use this opportunity to build together a group, you've got 2.5 miles here, 2.5 new miles where you can work together, form a little pace line, eat, drink, work together, expend a little bit less energy. And then you've got, another 15 miles after Twin Lakes Dam where you can do some more working together, and there is more road, less that single track is gone. You build a group here right after you finish Columbine that works together to pipeline. Your whole group can save minutes on your race time.
Yeah, there's a lot of effort on either side of this new section, whether it be what we used to have or what we have now. That's why it's so important to manage energy right in this little area, the private property workaround we're talking about. Columbine, whether you're going up or down, is work. Bona fide hard work. Don't discount that descent, too. That is hard work coming off it. The section between the dam and the private property is work. There is some Jeep trail in there, rough sections that you will be working your bike in both directions, inbound and outbound. So this private property workaround area here, where you're offered some flatter terrain, some smoother terrain, and a rest stop, we think. We should have Twin Lakes alternate feeds somewhere in this area. We're thinking it's going to be somewhere where the new double track, and this double track will be denoted by some power lines that run right above it, and the main road that takes you up to Columbine. It should be right in that area. It looks like it'll be similar to what we had before as far as Twin Lakes alternate goes, just a little further east, a little closer to the 24. And it's just about right now, they're just trying to figure out where exactly they're going to position it. And of course, what will happen to parking. We figure parking will be moved closer to the 24 to accommodate a new position for Twin Lakes alternate. But again, this private property workaround, while this section is now a little longer, it's also more of a chance to kind of regain your focus, get some recovery going as you either prepare for the Columbine climb or you prepare for getting back to Twin Lakes itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And something Hottie pointed out here is definitely worth underscoring. That is, this workaround is practically flat. So it is a place for you to maybe spin your legs a little and recover, like we said, as you get ready for that massive climb and do Columbine. It's also on the way back a great opportunity for you to start re-spinning your legs so that you don't go from that been coasting for 8 miles to all full tilt doing hard climbs again. That's when cramps always happen for me, is when I go from sort of a rest state to a super hard state. It's nice to have a little transition. So I'm planning to use this workaround to my advantage. So, Hottie, I want to talk to you a little bit more about the alternate feed zone, because that's where you are going to be ready to crew for me. We're going to have more information. Mike Melley has said that he's got some stuff that is very close to being ready to publish. I'm sure we'll talk about that in an upcoming episode. But for right now, I kind of want to have a mini racer to crew meeting about my biggest concern for the Leadville 100. And I just mentioned that a second ago, cramping. On my last big ride last weekend, I did what can only be objectively called a terrible job, staying on top of my hydration and my electrolytes. The day was hot. It was a big ride, lots and lots of climbing. And about 6 hours in, I started having real issues with cramping.
Temperatures in the extended Leadville forecast aren't looking too high yet. We've had rain, but the temperatures don't look too bad yet. But cramping, can be a problem even when it's cool out. What's your plan, Fatty?
Well, I'm going to do what has worked for me in the past, and this is I use goo products a lot to help with cramping. I'm going to be taking a handful of Goo's electrolyte capsules, both inbound and outbound, at that Twin Lake Dam alternate feed zone. Those make a big difference. And I'm going to be asking you to have ready a bottle with a Goo hydration drink tab. I never drink water during the Leadville 100. I always have some kind of electrolytes in my water because you've seen what my jersey and my shorts look like after the race. I sweat it all out. And then finally, in addition to these preventative measures, I'm trying to keep my hamstrings under control. I will have a pickle juice shot on the table. I'd like you to have that open and ready to go and ready to replace the one that I keep in my jersey pocket for emergencies. Those work fast. They don't last long, but they can kind of act as a good emergency measure when you have a cramp or the suggestion of a cramp.
And our listeners can get all of those, the Goo electrolyte capsules, Goo hydration tabs, and pickle juice shots at the feed. Make your orders now and get a 15% discount by signing up at thefeed.com/Leadville.
All right, let's move on to the Columbine turnaround course change. I used my own Strava for this, and it would have saved me, just looking at how much time I spent between the new turnaround and the old turnaround. And in 2019, that is a difference of 11 minutes, which is 2% of my total time. So that 3% that we were saying the race is going to be longer, 2% of that gets erased at the Columbine turnaround. So we are now back at 1% longer by the time we've turned around. It sort of wipes out a lot of that private property work around time-wise. Then that kind of gets us to a place where we had a brief disagreement in our episode last time on whether the Columbine turnaround is now a good place to stop because you don't have that grunt of a climb right afterward. Hottie, you were saying, yeah, it might be. I am still saying no. I'm interested in why you think it might be a good place to take on some nutrition.
Yeah, because you no longer have to climb out of the rest stop. The problem with the old stop. Now, first of all, I love the old turnaround, what is now the old turnaround. I mean, I love that. The view up there, the imagery in my mind that I would create all the time about going up to that spot. That said, that is a hard section, and parts of it are a little unsafe, too. So the race series has actually made Columbine a little easier and probably a little safer, at least on top, and there's a lot of traffic up there. And also, I believe if you need to stop, or if you just kind of want to stop, it's much less of an issue now than it was before because the climb out of the hole is now gone. So if you need to grab a quick pickle juice, like Fatty likes to use, or a gel, and you'd prefer to stop to do that, fine. At the top, you can now do that. Overall, though, I agree. Roll through if you can. Keep your your momentum going if you can, and make that stop back at Twin Lakes Alternate or at the dam or where have you. Keep your mojo going.
Okay, so in reality, we have no disagreement here. I agree. If you're going to stop, just keep it very brief. 1 minute or less. Honestly, you just don't want your legs to start cooling down And while there is not that grunt of a climb after the turnaround anymore, you are still at 12,500 feet. And you're not going to be doing a lot of recovery at that altitude. So if you have to stop, keep it brief. If you don't have to stop, this is a great place to not stop. Instead, turn around, keep going, keep your momentum up, just like Hottie says.
You know, Fatty, I'll say that one thing about the old turnaround is you had the descent going into it, and it was kind of a little recovery spot. So instead of beginning a long descent like Columbine is, all hyperventilated and out of breath, you would kind of climb back up out of the top there and have the little flat section on top to recover and then start the descent. This is going to require, if you do roll through, you might be a little gassed and breathing pretty hard as you roll through and roll back down. So just, again, kind of hit the reset button. Make sure you're absolutely ready for a screaming fast descent as you make that turnaround.
Yeah, and you can't have it be too screaming of a fast descent because with everyone strung out because of the 19-minute starting line, there were going to be truly people going up and down for a much longer or amount of Columbine. You need to stay under control. People have wiped each other out before. I don't know if anyone's ever gone to the hospital for it, but we sure don't want that to happen this year. Stay under control. This is a place where you can ruin your race. It is not a place where you are going to make up time. Be safe, rest, maybe work on a Camelback or a Usui pack. I will always have a pack on this climb and descent so that I can get some calories into myself while I am descending. I certainly can't reach for a bottle for until I get to the easy part of the descent. But yeah, use this in a smart way, a safe way, a cautious way. Let's talk about the single track, and that is eliminated now inbound. I don't have as much information on how much, what the delta is between the old way and the new way on this. Those of you who are doing the stage race this weekend, I think Hottie and I would both love to hear how fast you get through this. Tell us what you've learned. But it looks to be about 0.6 miles shorter than that single track plus little stinker combo. And it's more importantly going to be shorter, easier riding, and no getting off your bike to push up a hill. I think, and I am working without numbers here, but I think that it's relatively conservative to say that this could be a 1% return trip savings. And I think that more or less, it sort of wipes out the 3% increase that we're getting on the private property workaround.
I've seen a brief video of a portion of this new section, and it does look simple, wide open. I mean, it's double tracky, but it does not look lumpy or rocky. At least the section I saw, it looks like you can really roll this section, and it is going to be markedly easier than the single track and little stinker. And yes, you should be able to negate any of this private property workaround. This combined with the shorter Columbine turnaround, it's making it look like we've got a wash here. Even though we have more mileage on paper, this section too will aid in you making up time that you spent on the two times you had to do the private property workaround.
Yeah, the quality of distance matters as much or more than the quantity of distance, right? And the two eliminations, the two shortenings, are in places where you were definitely going slower than in the one place that you were doing twice, where you were definitely going longer. And also, since it is not single track, those of you who have a bee in your bonnet and are going fast are not going to have a congestion issue that you did have on the single track where you were getting held up by people who were in front of you. So I think that it's going to be a little bit faster, a little bit easier, a little bit less congested. And the people who are in the back of the pack can now do the single track, and that's guaranteed, and that is new, and that is awesome.
Yeah, the single track outbound is now, if you're in white and maybe you've been one of those folks who've been diverted going outbound because the the fast guys, the pros, are about to do it inbound, the single track that is, and you were diverted onto, I believe, this road, 136. Now you get to do the single track, which is great. You'll love it. It's a fun section. Everyone should have a crack at it. We just can't do it inbound now because of the wave starts, because we're trying to just space things out a little bit more on the course. We have spoken a few times on the show about climbing seated versus standing. This is mostly a personal choice, so neither can be called the right way to climb. But Fatty, it's pretty obvious that when you stand, you're going to really be rocking those bars, and you want everything you're holding on to transfer that rocking energy down through those wheels so you can propel that bike forward. I also remember a tip I got at a skills clinic on tackling steep climbs while seated. I was told to pull the bars toward me as I climbed and sink those pulls, those rows, if you will, to your downward pedal strokes to help propel you up the hill.
Yeah, that synchronized cadence can really give you just a tiny little edge, and that is really nice. My breathing even gets synced to all of that. And all of that is another great reason to have a fantastic set of handlebars, like the ones Hottie and I both use, the NVM5s. Out of the box, they are 780 millimeters wide, which is perfect for a standing climber like me who likes to really rock and roll up Columbine.
And if you spend more time in the saddle like me, then the 9-degree sweep on the M5 is just right to get those hand positions for the occasional row motion to get you up a steep pitch.
I love rocking and rowing, and you can learn more about all of NV's wheels and components, many of which seem like they are made with the Leadville 100 in mind, but which can handle pretty much anything you throw at them on any terrain at enve.com. I have just a few final thoughts on course changes before we wrap up this episode. The first one is just listening to ourselves as we talk is, this has been a surprisingly positive episode. I've been doing this race for 2 decades plus, and I really love the tradition of it and am reluctant to see changes. But just thinking about the changes that have been put in place really seem like it was by a promoter that cared a lot about racers. And it is, I have way more positive things to say about the wave starts and the course changes than I do negative. So I'm overall really pleased. I hope our listeners are more excited about the race than they were even a couple of weeks ago.
And instead of looking for the cons or the reasons why we don't like them, let's look for the opportunities, right? I mean, I think we've identified opportunities here. Maybe that new single track inbound, I'm going to be able to make a lot more time up there. There may be an opportunity here actually to improve your time. And I know Fatty and I have floated the idea that that might cost some folks a few minutes, but who knows? Folks may be able to flip this 1 mile net gain on its ear and actually reduce their time because, again, with the Columbine situation is markedly different. We're going to save many minutes up there. Inbound, missing the single track and little stinker is a huge game changer. So there could be opportunity here. At the very worst, I think we have a wash on time. So yeah, and again, for rider safety and to address some of the issues we've had over the years as the race has grown, this is worth a good try. And it's been something that it's been talked about for a while. So why not? Let's do some wave starts. Let's make those changes where we need to because the field is so much more spread out and give it a go and see how it works out.
Yeah. And 2 of the 3 course changes actually provide working together opportunities that have not been there before. And I've been thinking, since, in the last few years, gravel racing has risen in popularity, where it used to be that it was a lot of mountain bikers who were not used to working together. I kind of think that the field may be better prepared to work together on a dirt course than we used to have. I think that there is a better understanding of team dynamics on dirt. And I think that people who use these course changes as opportunities to work with the field, with the people who are in their wave, could really improve their own race as well as the race of the people around them. And most of us, 99% of us are there to do our very best. And, a rising tide lifts all boats, right? So help the folks around you and they'll do better too. I think that smart racers are going to be able to take these course changes for a faster race.
Speaking of working together, crewing. That's an area where we may have to work together this year to get everyone fed, get our stops done correctly, because it looks like we have some limitations on the number of crew members that we can have out on course.
Yeah. And I think that the working together is the real smart way to do this. You're, of course, you and Mrs. Hottie are my official crew, but Lisa's official crew is her son, Blake. But we're kind of thinking about, what if we do a zone defense instead of a one-on-one defense, so that you are at the Twin Lakes alternate and you're taking care of both Lisa and me. And then Lisa's son, Blake, is in the pipeline and he's taking care of both Lisa and me. You don't have to scramble and you can take care of just as many people. Racers work together and can take, and have their crews work together and maybe solve some of the problems of scrambling and missing your racer at that final aid station, which is good.
Yeah, right. Plus, I think if we can team up with a third racer of some sort, and their crew is at the main Twin Lakes, then we have you covered there in case of emergency too, and we reciprocate. We help their racers too as they're coming through alternate or through pipeline, and so you kind of got to create almost a team atmosphere around this to prevent trying to send your crew running all over 100 miles of race, well, not quite 100 miles of race course, but certainly a significant amount of race course, trying to track you down, possibly missing you. In fact, this was probably good advice, Fatty, before these changes, was to have, was to team up with other racers so you could stay stationary, keep your crews in one place and have them, instead of focusing on jumping from place to place, just focusing on doing their job at one location.
Yeah. If you can work with other racers and other crews, you have a much better chance of making sure that your racer has something that they need, no matter, in each of the feed zones. Now, let's talk a little bit about crew limits. Of course, there are 2 crew individuals per racer. And that is less, that's a new restriction. Makes sense to me. I think that they are being smart by doing that. However, there are a lot of racers who have a spouse and children, and sometimes more than one child. That suddenly becomes a little bit of a challenge, because what is that spouse going to do with their 8, 6, and 2-year-olds during the race? We asked Mike Melley about that and got some news.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to allow, again, it's 2 crew members per racer, but those under 16 are not going to count towards your 2 crews. So if you have 2 adults out there helping you, and you have 2 15-year-olds, they're free to come out. They're not going to be required to be wearing credentials or what have you. They will just be considered family support and under 16. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there's just not enough. There's not enough oversight in town to house a bunch of crazy kids while you're out there racing. So this makes sense. Let's have the kids out there with their parents and supporting mom or dad as they race the Leadville 100.
Yeah, really happy to hear about this change. Having kids, being able to see their parents as they do something really difficult and really big, I think is inspiring to the kids. And of course, incredible motivation for the parents. So, big fan of this decision. So before we wrap up, I want to talk a little bit about Pete Stetina again. We had him on the show recently talking about his Kokopelli FKT, and he is going to be putting some effort down in Leadville really soon. I understand he's also doing Steamboat Gravel, so he's got the lead boat on tap. He won the Belgian Waffle Ride. Congrats to him on that. Anyway, at the end of the episode, Pete mentioned Stetina's Pay Dirt, and it was a gravel event, or it's going to be a gravel event in the hills between Carson City, Nevada, and Lake Tahoe. It is an incredible sounding event. that now is sounding even better.
Yeah, Stennis Pay Dirt is going to shine a bright light on the women's field by making them the main act and giving women all the prize money. Our friends at Shimano putting up $4,000 for the women's field. And the event is assigning a photographer dedicated to covering the women's action.
Yeah, Pete said in a recent social post, throughout my career, if there was a women's event included in a race, it was generally treated as the opener to the men's main act. This is not okay. So we are flipping that script. He says, I know this isn't a perfect fix, but it is a start. And if everyone who believes in parity puts in a bit of elbow grease, real change is possible. Love that forward thinking.
Right. Normally, we tell you to go to bike.shimano.com to check out product, but this time we say go to Shimano's social accounts. They're not hard to find, and tell them you support what they are doing at Stennis Pay Dirt and for women's cycling. That's one way to keep this ball rolling.
Yeah, I'm still actually going to tell people to go to bike.shimano.com, Hottie, because there is one more Shimano-related thing. For most of our listeners who wisely choose Shimano SPD pedals, check your cleats before the race. If they are old, replace them now while you still have a few rides left to get your new cleats worn in. I just barely checked out Lisa's shoes is the reason I am bringing this up. And this was just on a hunch. And her cleats were barely recognizable as such. A race day is truly a terrible day to suddenly find that your shoes no longer engage with the pedals.
Yeah, I think I saw a picture of those cleats. They were worn down to the screws. So that's no bueno. You know, it makes the cleat easy to disengage and engage, but it's no way to stay put on your pedals. So yes, new cleats. And then get them a little worn in before race day. So you know if you do have to maybe dab and get back in, they do go in. Not like new cleats, but a little broken in. It's just fine. A little thing can make all the difference in the world on race day. Find cleats and every other Shimano product over at bike.shimano.com.
All right, let's go ahead and wrap this episode. We have more episodes between now and race day, so if you have more feedback or questions, please do reach out.
Fatty's on Twitter at Fat Cyclist, and I am on Instagram at Michael Houghton. Of course, we are both on the Facebook Leadville 100 Mountain Bike Participants page.
We also have a Slack channel with an active give and take going on. You'll find a link to it over at leadville100podcast.com. Honestly, I have a window open for it pretty much all the time.
If you like this show, go over to Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. For all the ways to find this show, it's pod.link/Leadville.
Good luck in what is left of your training and your tapering, your resting, your recovering. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you very, very soon at the 2021 starting line.
The corrals, as you know, gold up front, silver onto red, going over to Harrison. We have green, purple, orange, blue, and white in that order from the front all the way to the back.